Why love is not the answer. This experience is more complex than romanticism, first off. Secondly, love is more complex than the modern definition of love. Thirdly, the way love is used and has been commercialized throughout society, throughout the whole world, there's an algorithm to how it's calibrated with each faction. So you have the individual definition of love. Then you have the new age definition of love. Then you have the ancestral definition of love. Then you have the non-physical definition of love. The transcendent love, the love that goes beyond even this reality, that encompasses this reality in a space of why, not how, and questioning the reality from within, but like Bruce Lee is saying, being like water with the entire experience. The love of being able to let go of the need to know, being able to let go of the ego which thinks it knows. The main point of this video is to emphasize how love is used as a weapon. I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but I needed to share with people how, in a more condensed version, how it really affects us. Individually, when you have romanticized love, then you have a lot of relationships that are going to be based upon romanticism. And in that romanticism, you're going to have a lot of looking the other way. A lot of abusive behavior happens in romanticism because romanticism is devoid largely of reality. There's a lot of rationalizing of actions in romanticism, which is also very dangerous and adds to the abusive nature. You can see how the individual perspective relates directly to the idea of love for your country. And by love for your country, I mean by love like the way it is today, like America #1, like love your system, love the way things are, America this, America that. And there's a difference between loving the land, like being in a space of harmony, in balance, individually and with the land, your people. See, that kind of love is pretty much criminalized because there's been this artificial love matrix that has been placed upon our relationships with love, with each other, with the land, that has in many ways redefined who we are by redefining our belief systems. Like in the last video that I recut and shared about how heliocentrism affects our personal relationships with ourselves and the universe itself. How could you love something that is lifeless? So the planets are shared to us from a so-called scientific perspective, scientism. They're shared to us from a perspective of being dead. They're lifeless. They have no meaning and no purpose. Maybe they did at one point, but right now, the only thing we need to focus on is this little blue marble where there's only our life here. So in the whole universe, there's no proof of life existing, but they give you that little hint that there may be aliens out there and they're definitely smarter than us. So what that also does is make you dumb. So you're dumber than the rest of the universe. And you also don't have proof that there's life there. So this is a subconscious hell. You don't have proof, which scientifically, in order to activate life inside of you, you need proof, because science is the internal religion of the mainstream, the modern society today. So you are lifeless when your universe is lifeless. And you're not only lifeless, like I said, based upon their theories, because scientism says, you know, they leak this little stuff out there. There might be aliens here and there might be this and that. So you're not only lifeless, you're not only dead, you not only have no purpose, you're floating in a vast nothingness, a vacuum of death and destruction. But you're fucking stupid. Like, you're the dumbest thing in the universe. Why? Because the way things are in society. So that just rationalizes how shitty everything could be. Because at least you're not dead, and at least you're not the dumbest of the dumb here. This is what allows things to continue on the lowest scale of existence, like barely above animalistic, and in many different ways, not even above animalistic behaviors. In that dead universe, love becomes the last hope. It becomes the saving grace. It becomes your only reason for living. And when you have a romanticized definition of love, then your reasoning for living is romanticized. So you don't have any defined reasons or focus in that reasoning for living. So when you have that lack of definition, you have holes in yourself, personally and collectively. And this is why you have empty people, empty relationships, empty values, little to no values in society. This emptiness gets reinforced through the romanticism portrayed through entertainment. So you'll watch television shows that are sharing with you the idea of the science fiction of people, mostly white people, going to other galaxies or other star systems in the universe. And what is their main mission? Well, it's based upon what they said here, which is spreading civilization. I just saw a commercial about that the other day. And why are they spreading civilization? Because they want to portray themselves as being the savior, maintaining their sense of leadership. This is why all of your African kings and queens are played by so-called white actors. And all of your slaves are played by so-called black actors. This is why your so-called forefathers are etched in stone on stolen land in mountains. And the rightful leaders and caretakers of this land are pushed onto concentration camps, or what are now known as ghettos. And why are they doing that? Because they love you, right? They want to evolve civilization. And the primitive and savage old types of humans who won't succumb to the new technology and the new age and the new world order. They're savage. They're primitive. They deserve to be on concentration camps called reservations. They deserve to be in the inner cities, in the ghettos. Look at them. Look at them shooting each other. Look at them doing the drugs. Look at them drinking all that alcohol. Never telling you that they put all the liquor stores on every corner of these so-called ghettos. Never telling you that their own government agencies are putting drugs and guns into the communities. And people know this, but their love for country, love for the romanticized identity, the love for themselves that is largely made up of this romanticized identity, won't allow reality to sink in. This is why when I shared information about the idea of, or the identity of white, and that being a direct reflection of the institution of racism, white supremacy, that's a romanticism in itself. To identify as white is a direct extension of racism, white supremacy, not only in the United States, but around the world. It's an identity of privilege. And people who automatically get defensive about that. White is not a nation. It's not a culture. It's nothing. It's nothing but a fairy tale. just as black is nothing but a nightmare. Talking about the label, the inherent nature, the love and the lovelessness of these identities has nothing to do with the essence of the people, has everything to do with the controlling of the people on every level, the soul, the mind, and the body. So as we go into this idea of this new year, because obviously, again, when your universe is completely romanticized and made up, including the idea of time, what is the new year? Who made these dates? All this energy being expressed, all these explosions that you hear on certain times, celebrating, drinking, love, more love again. People falling in love on New Year's Day. When you have to kiss somebody right when the new year kicks over. See how deeply ingrained love is into society, in our everyday reality. I'll link a video that I shared maybe a few months ago of Professor Bayyinah Bello sharing how she broke down love in reference to Oshun and the relationship that love has with courage and character and power, balance, harmony. That has nothing to do with the romanticism. When you see it that way, you can see how the artificial love is used as a weapon, even more so. And when you start to identify that, you can see how the extensions of that romanticized love as a weapon have been developed into more complex weapons in circles like the New Age community, where they have taken that romanticized version of love and turned it into twin flames, finding your twin flame. Mind you, in the last video, going back to the last video I just reposted, seeing love and seeing all of these things as distractions from your direct engagement in time, your direct engagement in consciousness, your direct engagement in the way things are in society, your direct engagement in what we accept in society. So is love the answer? Of course not. Love is the answer like freedom is the answer. It's a romanticism. It's commercialized for a purpose to reach a certain demographic of people. Because is love the answer? Yeah, for some people. Is freedom the answer? Yes, for some people. People who are in line, who need to hear that, who need to know, who haven't even opened up the doors to what love really is. People need to go through the romanticized version of love in order to realize what love isn't. Once you realize what love isn't, then you can have a deeper interpretation of what love really is. The trick is to keep people trapped in the idea of what love is, which is really the definition of what love really isn't, which is that romanticized version of love. This is why I seem to come down so hard on these New Age communities, because the way they share that idea of love is the weaponized version of love. And I have yet to see any YouTube channels really going in hard on that, on how it's been weaponized. Because it's like dangerous. People are like, oh, well, if it's not love, then what is it? And then what are you about? You know, people need these answers. And when you say it's not all about love, it leaves people kind of like hanging out there by themselves. And a lot of people aren't really comfortable being vulnerable like that. Love is what allows a lot of the fucked up things that are going on in the world to happen. Just the same way as a lot of the wars. In fact, most of the wars and most of the deaths around the world are backed by the idea of religions, modern mainstream religions. And what's that related to? The love of that God, that particular religion. And then their love with that God or particular religion is then mirrored or reflected back onto themselves and then into their idea of their family, and is passed on to the next generation. So in closing of this video, start adding more to your definition of love, which will add more character to the definition of yourself, of each other, of your relationships. It'll add more depth to your relationship with yourself, with each other, with your surroundings. And in that deepening of that definition, you'll inherently hold more things accountable, individually and beyond. Let go of this romanticized version of reality. If you don't know something, be okay with not knowing. That'll eventually get you to a space of not needing to know, and then eventually knowing that you're not going to know. That knowingness is always going to be based upon the idea of knowing from your perspective. What you knew when you were 15 is different from what you know when you're 25 and what you know when you're 35 and 45 and so on and so forth. What you needed to know when you were 15 is largely non-existent. The same way what you needed to know and what you thought you needed to know when you were 25 is not there anymore. You're a different person. So, is love more of an answer, or is love more of a weapon? One's based in romanticism, the other's based in harmonics. What is harmonic and what is not? Is romanticism harmonic? No. It sounds harmonic, but the keys are very much off because there's a lot missing. The romanticized version of love, the modern version of love, is largely out of key collectively. See, when time is slowed down and turned dead, you only hear one key at a time. That's how love is portrayed in society, one key at a time. So we think harmony is based on one key, when it's actually based upon the symphony those keys make up. Romanticism is based upon one key. I love this one thing about this person. Then they get married and do all kinds of shit. I love this about this country. It's one key. When you sit back and listen to the music that those keys are putting together, you'll see that it is very out of tune, not harmonic in any kind of fashion, and is largely destructive in many different ways, individually and collectively. This could be seen as how people go into looking at the difference between 440 hertz and 432. Are there harmonics that are beneficial to us, to nature, to us as nature, to our relationships? Yes. You see them every day. You might not pay attention to them, but you see them every day. We get so caught up in being forced to pay attention to each note that we don't even know the sounds of nature. We don't know the harmonics of nature anymore. And largely, the harmonics of nature have been criminalized. You can see this with us being criminalized. We're the living embodiment of harmony. Our relationships are symphonies, are balanced beyond interpretation. There's no way to define it. Some people can't hear that music, so they have to create an entire world that changes that harmonic, that changes that relationship, that changes that focus, and starts to compose music, which is a stretch to define this as music. But there are some, there's some music out there you're like, God damn. But some people listen to it. And that's basically what's going on right now. People's definition of love has been turned into heavy metal, loud noise. And heavy metals have their place. But heavy metals do not belong in our blood. They sure as hell don't belong in defining the entire universe. Love will be shared. Love will be used even more so as a weapon now, because anti-love has been used as a weapon for the last 4 years. Beyond that, but as a focus for the last 4 years. It's been emphasized. Hatred has been emphasized. And in order to maintain control, there has to be an artificial balance. So, like I've said in previous videos, the artificial control grid has to create an artificial frequency. Frequencies go up and down, up and down. 2020 has been a very obvious downer. So bringing in this vaccine, the vaccine, Biden and Kamala as a vaccine for politics, and that will just shockwave down the world of distraction. But as that world continues to turn, because it will, and there will be a lot of people that will follow it, I'm speaking to the people who aren't going to follow that trend, who are going to, if haven't been already, thinking for themselves and start to question even what they've felt so comfortable with for so long. Start questioning some of these people that you follow who don't go into a lot of these topics. A lot of people can't go into the idea of love because the depths of love, because a lot of their personal relationships are caught up in the romanticized version of love. Some people's relationships are based upon that romanticism so deeply that if they start to even question the macro definitions of romantic love, then it will start to threaten their micro love, their personal relationships. And you have entire channels, YouTube channels of people who are in these relationships, who are dictating the evolving of thought because of their personal relationships. And they are very much controlling a lot of the forward progress, no different than the mainstream media manipulates and controls forward progress. This is why a lot of these YouTube channels have to keep repeating the same information over and over and over again and never seem to evolve it. It seems to just keep hitting a certain point and then it'll just go back to what it was. This is why a lot of YouTube channels and people on social media in general have to talk about other people. Like, that's their main focus, is to expose other people, because it keeps a defense mechanism up for distracting from the depths of exposing the positive exposing of themselves. In that exposing of yourself, that's growth. A lot of people don't want to grow because when you grow, just like in family relationships, same thing happens online, you'll grow away from people. And if you're growing away from people that's connected to your money chain, when you grow and you grow into certain spaces, you're going to grow yourself out of income. Like I've said in previous videos, this is why people have to maintain their demographic of people, because they're going to evolve themselves out of the demographic of people who continue to invest in what they want to hear. People are investing time and energy in validating of where they have stopped in many different ways. People need to be validated in what they think they know. Going back to the love, because that validates their love for themselves and their idea for love for each other and love for however you want to define it, wherever that romanticized version of love goes. But as this last year has shown us and some of the realities that are out there, I'm looking forward to a lot of what is revealed in this upcoming year, because a lot of the old tactics aren't working anymore. A lot of the old romantic versions of evolution and love, they don't hold as much water as they used to. And when that system starts to crash, you're going to see some real love, courageous love, character building love, ancestral love, harmonic love. And that's something to look forward to individually and collectively.